Welcome to our presentation, Leadership and Profitability in the Trucking Industry. My name is Joe White and my company is CostDown Consulting. In this presentation, I will describe the two leadership influences that have the greatest impact on profitability and then explain how to use those influences to maximize your bottom line. We begin our discussion by examining a leadership pyramid that represents the typical organizational hierarchy in most trucking companies. At the very top of the leadership pyramid is the owner or CEO or president. We'll refer to this layer as the owner. The owner has two primary responsibilities: develop strategy for the organization, which includes providing capital to fund strategy implementation, and hire the executive group and hold them accountable for their assigned tasks and responsibilities. The next layer down is the executive group, which consists primarily of department heads such as a VP of Maintenance, VP of Operations, VP of Sales, etc. The executive group is responsible for supporting company strategy and middle manager hiring, training, resource allocation, and accountability. The next layer consists of middle managers, those employees that directly manage driver performance. Typical titles include terminal managers and driver managers. At this level, planning becomes tactical instead of strategic, as daily plans are used to hold drivers accountable for delivering freight on time and as cost effectively as possible. The final layer is the drivers themselves. It is their actual performance that most influences financial results. In small trucking companies, the executive group could be significantly smaller or not exist at all. In those cases, middle management would report directly to the owner, who would absorb strategy support and middle manager accountability responsibilities that are otherwise assigned to the executive group in larger companies. The influences of leadership on profitability are the same for small and large trucking companies, with the exception that the small trucking company owner may have far more direct bottom line influence, as he or she works directly with middle management. We will include the executive group in our discussion because when that layer does exist, it has significant financial influence. Now that we have examined the typical trucking company organizational hierarchy and related responsibilities, let's take a look at the influences of leadership on profitability. The leaders of trucking companies have two main and very significant profitability influencers. The first influence is strategy and tactics. Strategy that is well defined and funded by the owner, supported by the executive group, and reflected in middle manager tactical planning provides a very significant and positive bottom line influence. The second leadership profitability influence is accountability. The more successfully each layer of the organization holds the next lower level accountable for assigned responsibilities and goals, the more positive the impact on profitability. When accountability, strategy, and tactical planning are all aligned between management layers, profitability is maximized. However, if either of the leadership profitability influences are not aligned, meaning that between management layer failures occur, the profit impact moves in a negative direction. For example, if executives don't clearly understand their assigned roles within the owner-established strategy or are not provided the resources needed to make their goals, strategy implementation will suffer, as will profitability. And if both of these leadership influences are not maximized, profit deteriorates even further. The higher up the leadership pyramid failures in strategy and/or accountability occur, the greater the negative impact on profits. Therefore, the greatest influence is exerted by strategy and accountability failures at and between the owner and the executive group. This is the pivot point of our profitability vector, where small degrees of failure and misalignment result in large impacts on profitability. Since the highest degree of influence is at the owner-executive group pivot, this is where we will confine the rest of our discussion. Narrowing our focus to that focal point eliminates middle manager tactical planning and driver accountability from the discussion. However, before moving on, it is important to note that the tactical planning and driver accountability influences of the middle manager group do have a very significant impact on profitability. To ensure that strategy and accountability are maximized through all layers of the organization, influence alignment activities are developed and put in place. Influence alignment activities provide the strategic vision, resource needs, training, processes, controls, and rewards required to maximize profits. Influence alignment activities are enablers that ensure that the leadership profit influences of strategy and accountability are maximized throughout the organization. Now let's examine some typical influence alignment activities. We begin with owner strategy development and capital activities. Our first activity, understanding prior period hits or misses, refers to analyzing past performance in terms of successes and failures and using that knowledge to help frame your new strategies. Owners should work with their executive group to review performance history by department. Use that analysis to identify obstacles that prevented goal obtainment and then jointly address those obstacles. Select the highest impact profit and cost goals for your organization. Examples could include reducing deadhead miles, reducing driver turnover, or improving MPG performance or tons per load. Include performance management programs with your strategy that provide middle managers defined performance goals, best practice training, and financial rewards to motivate goal obtainment. Provide the needed funding to support your strategy. And finally, communicate your strategic plan and expectations to the executive group. Be very explicit in defining and explaining your expectations from each executive in the group. Within the owner accountability influence, key alignment activities center on executive selection and accountability. While hiring, retaining, and firing executives based on performance may seem obvious, too often, friends or family serve in executive positions, which often decreases the owner's ability, or more appropriately, willingness, to hold those employees accountable. Use precise job descriptions and comprehensive annual reviews to define expectations and assess actual performance in relation to those expectations. Members of the executive group should receive a significant portion of their compensation from performance-based bonuses to motivate individual executive efforts towards assigned responsibilities and strategy support. Executives must be assigned precise goals and project deadlines which support the owner's strategy objectives. Executives should be required to report regularly on their performance progress, and regular staff meetings should be held to accommodate both progress reporting and between-department cooperation. Sometimes, executives may be assigned a project and deadline that does not support any of their assigned goals, but does support another department's goal. For example, a sales VP may be tasked with shedding unwanted business that influences the operations VP's loaded mile goal, but not the sales VP's revenue per loaded mile goal. The owner must make sure that key alignment activities ensure between department cooperation. Finally, monitor the performance of your executive group frequently. The sooner you identify when they are not meeting expectations, the easier it will be to address those mistakes. The key trait of owner leadership is knowing that you can't just set the direction, you have to also steer the ship. One of the biggest mistakes owners make is that they tell their executives what they want done and then expect them to develop supporting strategy and accountability. That rarely works, as different perceptions, skill sets, and lack of coordination between departments all interfere with successful strategy implementation. As an owner, you must manage strategy implementation and hold your executive group accountable. Now let's discuss executive group influence alignment activities. We'll begin with strategy, which at this level focuses on supporting the strategic direction established by the owner. The first alignment activity is to simply understand what your role is in enabling company strategy. In other words, what do you and your department have to accomplish to support strategy implementation and within what timelines? Part of the understanding process is to assess your individual resource needs and those of your middle managers. For example, perhaps new reports or technology is needed to monitor assigned goal progress. Communicate company strategy to middle managers in terms of what they need to do differently to make goals, and then explain the resources that will be provided. When discussing strategic direction and requirements with middle managers, emphasize the "what's in it for me" bonus opportunity from their performance management program and use of established best practices to make goals. Lastly, always require that any obstacle encountered by a middle manager is immediately reported for resolution. Performance obstacles are often uncommon stumbling blocks for same-level employees. Therefore, prompt reporting and resolution could benefit all middle manager performance. Now let's look at some accountability alignment activities for the executive group. The first is a repeat of an accountability alignment activity for the owner. Family and friends in key positions, even middle manager positions, can influence accountability and needs to be avoided where possible. Also, a repeat yet very effective accountability activity is the use of precise job descriptions and annual reviews to define and assess performance. Easy access performance reporting is especially important to the middle manager group, as they usually are not privy to staff meetings and other corporate updates regarding strategy progress. Middle managers are usually very interested in how they are individually performing to assign goals, as they are motivated by the opportunity to make performance bonuses. Frequent monitoring of middle manager performance is essential to keeping progress on track, as is group sharing and resolution of hits and misses. We discussed earlier how the sharing of uncommon obstacles can be beneficial to the entire group. Likewise, the sharing of performance successes, particularly the processes and activities used to make a goal, can benefit the entire middle manager group. Finally, focus coaching efforts and training on underperforming managers. Frequent monitoring of performance enables early detection of in-need middle managers so that you can start providing them guidance before they become too far off target. The key leadership trait of members of the executive group is to fully understand that regardless of department or title, your role is to enable successful strategy implementation. Let's summarize our discussion on leadership and profitability in the trucking industry. The first summary point is that when the profitability influences of strategy and accountability are aligned between management layers, profit is maximized. When leadership profitability influences are not aligned between management layers, profit is negatively impacted. The profitability focal point is the alignment between the owner and executive layers of leadership. Small degrees of misalignment here can create large negative impacts on profitability. Key leadership traits. For the owner, you can't just set the direction, you have to also steer the ship. For members of the executive group, regardless of department or title, your role is to enable strategy implementation. Influence alignment activities are used to maximize between management layer strategy implementation and accountability control. Influence alignment activities act like puzzle pieces that fit together to form the big picture. In this case, realization of a company's profit goals. Influence alignment activities provide the strategic vision, resource needs, training, processes, controls, and rewards required to maximize profits. They are enablers that allow strategy and accountability to flow from the top of the leadership pyramid to the bottom. Trucking company operations can vary greatly. Therefore, influence alignment activities required at one trucking company can be completely different from those of another. To maximize profitability in your organization, design your alignment activities carefully and then manage them aggressively. Finally, I again want to emphasize that middle managers need to be included in the alignment process. We limited our discussion to the most influential pivot point, the owner-executive group leadership layers, but if middle managers are not included, profitability will suffer significantly. Thank you for watching our presentation, Leadership and Profitability in the Trucking Industry. I hope you found it of value. Again, my name is Joe White, and my company is CostDown Consulting. If you have questions concerning this presentation or need help aligning your company's strategy, tactics, and accountability, please give me a call. Thank you.